Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by the Family Forest Carbon Program, where we help family forest owners get paid to improve the health of their woods. Hope you're having an enjoyable holiday. Mother Nature, well, it depends on where you are, I guess, as to what you're getting today. As we look to the latest, there might be some aha moments in the MAHA report. MAHA concedes in the report that federal government reviews of epidemiological data for the most common herbicide did not establish a direct link between use according to label directions and adverse health outcomes, and updated U.S. government health assessment on common herbicides is expected in 2026. The report also points to more recent data from the USDA's pesticide data program found that 99% of food samples tested in 2023 were compliant with EPA's safety limit. When it comes to regulating pesticides, MAHA said in its recommendations that any changes need to consider the effects on agriculture as well as the domestic and global food supply. MAHA went on to say there is need to collaborate with farmers and that any regulatory changes take cost considerations into account to ensure farmers can continue to operate while protecting public health. Agriculture interest groups made swift and forceful responses to the MAHA Commission report and called on President Donald Trump to intervene. Zippy Duvall, president of the American Farm Bureau Federation, said it was deeply troubling for the White House to endorse a report that sows seeds of doubt and fear about the U.S. food system. Farmers are identified as critical partners, yet were excluded from development of the report despite many requests for a seat at the table, Duvall said in a statement. And a quick note on the calendar. The Jackson County Regional Livestock Market will have a bred cow sale Friday at 6 p.m. The Livestock Authority's website is jcrlm.com. Joining me is Wendy Osborne, Director of Market Development for Ohio Corn and Wheat. Wendy, we've got a nice topic to talk about because there's prize money available, and it's not a first-time event. This is the 5th year for the Corn Challenge. Is that right?
Yeah, this is the 5th time that the National Corn Growers Association has held the Consider Corn Challenge, trying to find new uses for corn.
Like what? Way out there kind of things, real science world, or some real world things that high school kids might think about?
In the United States, we're the largest producer of corn. So we're always trying to find new market demand for the amount of corn that we produce. So a lot of our corn goes to livestock feed, goes to ethanol production, but also is in use for industrial uses. So many companies are using petroleum-based product for chemicals and plastics that we make, but a lot of companies are looking for a new renewable source. So corn is a great feedstock for these chemicals and bio-based products.
Boy, when you start looking about that, really it's kind of the sky's the limit. If we make it out of something petroleum-based now, there's probably a way to do it. And is it unique enough that a company would have an interest in it?
Yeah, corn is one of the most abundant and affordable feedstocks to replace these petroleum-based products. So a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the clothing that we wear, cosmetics, a lot of our everyday household goods are made from petroleum. So corn has abundant opportunity to be used as these bio-based products.
Very renewable as well, right? Every year we plant a new base?
Yeah, and that's a big challenge with petroleum-based products because they are not renewable. And again, it's good for U.S. corn farmers, a new way to increase our corn utilization, as well as helping the environment and being a renewable resource.
3 different prizes, all at $100,000 each. So how do we apply?
Well, they actually get $300,000 is going to be split between the top 3 winners. If they go to ncga.com, they can find more details about the contest. The application deadline is June 30th.
Again, that's ncga.com. The deadline is June 30th. Check it out. You might have the right idea. I've been visiting with Wendy Osborne, Director of Market Development for Ohio Corn and Wheat. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
A dry holiday for us here today, but we still have some moisture headed our way later this week. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Quick forecast update here for you in Ohio. High pressure is in control today, sitting right up near the eastern end of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan into Ontario. That's going to give us full sunshine throughout your Monday. Looking at a little bit of cloud cover trying to increase in southwestern Ohio overnight tonight, and that's ahead of some slight moisture that tries to push into southern Ohio tomorrow midday and afternoon. afternoon. This is part of a weather system that's been, well, plaguing, let's just say, the Central Plains and Western Corn Belt the past few days, finally working eastward. I think the northern branch of this moisture starts to work through Indiana and Michigan late tomorrow and into tomorrow night, and that moves into Ohio likely for the entire daytime hour period on Wednesday. All in, all done, from late tomorrow through Wednesday, I think we have to put anywhere from a quarter to 3/4 of an inch of rain in here with coverage at 90% of the Buckeye State. Any thunderstorm activity can bump those rain totals just a bit more, maybe getting closer to 1 inch. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. The cattle and calves on feed for the slaughter market in the United States for feedlots with a capacity of 1,000 head or more on Friday said there were 11.4 million head, and the inventory was 2% below May 1 of 2024. Follow that theme. Placements in feedlots during April totaled 1.61 million head, 3% below that of 2024. Marketings of fed cattle during April totaled 1.83 million head, 3% below that of 2024. Now, the pre-report estimates nearly pinned Friday's USDA cattle on feed report perfectly. And it's likely that when the markets open tomorrow, the markets finally get to look at the numbers after the 3-day holiday weekend. Traders will find the report to be bullish, said DTN livestock analyst Shaylee Stewart. The biggest takeaway from Friday's report, however, is the placement data, Stewart said, with placements in April of 25 only totaling 1.613 million head. That's the lightest monthly placement data the industry has seen since April of 2020, when placements were vastly disturbed by the COVID outbreak. And when looking back further in the data, beyond the market's disruption of 2020, the last time a single month has seen placements below 1.6 million head was back in January of 2015. Needless to say, the data is clear. There were starkly fewer cattle placed this past month because of the limited number of feeder cattle and because of reduced imports from Mexico. Joining me is Lindsay Sirica. She teaches near Cleveland at North Olmsted. Nice to talk to you. What kind of classes are you teaching as a result of your professional development exposure with the Grow Next Gen program?
I teach 8th grade science, and through the Grow Next Gen professional development, I have took the Chickenology course. It matches up very nicely with the 8th grade standards. I've done some outdoor education classes too, and I've done things throughout the SECO conference, learning along the way lots of different things, from drones to making soy ink in the classroom, which I've done with my students. Lots of cool stuff.
You also talked about the professional development, and you observed it was really interesting that farmers were that interested in students' professional development and careers in agriculture that they invested their time and money into it. Tell us more about that.
I was astounded when I came back from the Chickenology with the amount of materials I had, the high-level professional development. And when I learned why, this is kind of strange, I'm getting all this is cool, I learned that it's because of the soybean checkoff, and I was very impressed that that was something the industry was doing. I felt very honored to be a recipient of the materials and able to bring a lot of really cool stuff to my students, as well as helping out a pretty big industry in our state.
Before you had the Grow Next Gen projects, on a scale 1 to 10, how were your students at asking questions? Did they like to?
Sometimes they would like to, but this definitely piqued their curiosity because it's a lot of things that they have not had a lot of experience being a suburban district. So I think it has opened their eyes a little bit, and they were very interested with what we've been talking about.
Does it change the way you teach to hear questions come from the classroom that most of the time you're not used to hearing questions from?
Absolutely. It's easy to take those little side tracks here and there and explore something that everybody's kind of curious about, while sometimes they're like, oh, we got the teacher off track. Like, I know what I'm doing. And it's a valuable, teachable moment and gives us a chance to learn something new and also get them to be continued being curious.
Have you been able to use the tools on the website?
Yes, very much. The virtual field trips, looking at career videos, different lesson plans and getting ideas, different e-learning courses as well. There's a lot of materials that are very valuable and relevant for sure.
Lindsay Sirica, my guest. She teaches at North Olmsted. That's in the Cleveland area. Lindsay, thanks for the update.
Thank you very much.
We'll look into the market recap after this.
Many drugs, like cocaine, methamphetamine, and non-prescription pills, are often cut with dangerous opioids like fentanyl. As a result, nearly 14 Ohioans die daily from unintentional overdoses. That's why it's important to carry naloxone, such as Narcan, a life-saving medication that blocks the effects of fentanyl and other opioids. Over the last 5 years, naloxone has saved over 83,000 lives. Help save lives and visit naloxone.ohio.gov to learn more and find free naloxone. Remember, if you see an overdose occurring, always call 911.
Soybeans are making waves in aquaculture. As a top protein source for fish farming, soy meal is essential for producing sustainable farm-raised fish. With fish farming as the fastest growing food sector, soybeans meet the demand for eco-friendly, nutritious options. From soybean fields to fish farms, soybeans power the farms that feed families. Brought to you by the Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Another note before we get to the markets, a federal judge in California has blocked USDA and other federal agencies from launching mass firings and reorganizing their departments. The federal judge in California has issued a preliminary injunction against President Donald Trump's executive order calling for mass reductions in force and reorganizing plans across the federal government. USDA has reorganization plan ready that Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins planned to release. U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston from Northern District of California granted a preliminary injunction late Thursday extending her order that halts President Donald Trump's executive order that directs mass reductions in force. The order affects 21 federal departments or agencies, including USDA. The order delays USDA plans to reorganize and slash jobs. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Call 574-566-2113 for information on marketing your soybeans to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished mostly lower on Friday, and the markets are closed today in observance of the Memorial Day holiday. Lots of information in the market last Friday, but not a lot of players, and nobody wanted to take new risk ahead of a holiday weekend. Here were the stories that hit the market last Friday. President Trump started the day with a threat of a 50% tariff on the EU goods and services on June 1st. Trump said, quote, negotiations are not going anywhere. So that's the problem. There's just not enough to satisfy the president. And so here we go again. That hit the market early on. Now, Treasury Secretary Bessent says there is progress on trade deals, but maybe just not with Europe. The U.S. and China are going to be talking face to face. President Trump is going to be looking at the EU, a $250 billion trade surplus the EU has versus the U.S. There are just 7 days to reach the deal with the U.S. government as of last Friday. A lot fewer over the next few days. The government closed down because of the Memorial Day holiday today. The hike in EU tariffs is probably going to be sparking EU retaliation. Whether or not that's going to be in the headlines right away on a Tuesday is still up in the air. The U.S. did have 500,000 metric tons of unshipped old crop corn sales to Spain and Portugal, a massive 3.6 million metric tons of U.S. open corn sales to unknown. The EU has purchases of old crop soybeans with 1.57 million metric tons of purchases to unknown. So that's what is in the cards here. If a lot of those unknowns are Europe rather than the EU, there are the problems. Also, rumors last Friday that the EPA is preparing to announce the 26-27 renewable fuel volumes over the weekend, but there is no evidence that the Office of Management and Budget has finished scoring the RVO budget hit. That usually takes as long as a month, so I'm not sure whether that's going to do anything either. It really didn't affect the market much last Friday. We'll see if any announcement gets it this week. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. At Friday's close in the markets, July corn down 3.5 at 459.5. December down 2.5 at 450 3/4. July beans down 7 1/4 at 1060 1/4 cent. November down 4 3/4 at 1050 1/2. July wheat down 2 at 542.5 cent. Now, the cattle on feed report came out after the markets closed, so Tuesday will be our first day to see reaction. June cattle pre-report were up 17 cents at $215.80. August down 5 at $210.45. June lean hogs down 40 cents at $98.30. July closed down 50 cents at $101.55. September feeder cattle were up 72 at $299.35. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Dale Minyo. This is the Ohio AgNet.